Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Welcome. Nice to see all our panelists are in place. Should we start, or do we allow 5 minutes? We have 19 participants already.
We can start so that those who come late will understand that we mean business. I submit respectfully.
Yeah. I think so. Let's do that. Okay. Good day, distinguished communication and business management professionals, wherever you are in West Africa and the rest of the world. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the second webinar of the West Africa Interest Group of the International Association of Business Communicators Africa Region. Today, we will be tackling boosting organizational culture, productivity, and profitability with the strategic communication and asset. And we have lined up a top-tier team of experts to discuss matter. So I welcome you. Our panelists include Dr. Ngozi Onya. Dr. Onya is Managing Director of Pelon Memorial Hospital. Dr. Onya is a consultant pediatrician with experience and training as a primary care, travel, health, occupational, and HIV physician. She's the founding partner and managing director of Pelon Memorial Hospital in Lagos. Pelon Memorial Hospital is one of those hospitals recently accredited to manage COVID-19 care. Dr. Onya possesses an executive MBA from the Lagos Business School and was company medical advisor to Nigerian breweries for about 10 years. Next on the panel, Mr. Nana Buake Yadom is Corporate Communications Manager at Guinness Ghana Breweries, a member of the Diageo Group. Nana is a former international award-winning journalist. He has considerable experience in public relations, communications, and journalism, spanning across 3 industries: fast-moving consumer goods, media, and pharmaceuticals. He's a Chevening Scholar and a 2016 cohort of the Mandela Washington Fellowship under President Barack Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative. Welcome, Nana.
Thank you.
Professor Robert Abel Hinson is our panelist. Academic, administrator, and marketer, Robert Hinson combines experience from working in a communications firm, his country's electoral commission, research, and teaching at the university. He's a professor of marketing and currently acting director, Office of Institutional Advancement at the University of Ghana. These 3 are panelists. Welcome, Dr. Onya, Professor Hinson, and Mr. Nana Buake. Mrs. Shola Abulu is our Director of West Africa Membership Outreach, IABC Africa Region. In that capacity, she's the one that has put this together as our host for the day. Ms. Abulu is a communication strategist with over 25 years experience in corporate communications and external relations. She spent most of her career at Shell Nigeria, where she was until 2019, the External Relations and Communications Manager for Shell Nigeria. She also worked in the company's headquarters in The Hague as a Senior International Advisor on Nigeria. Mrs. Abulu is currently Principal Consultant for Shola Abulu and Associates, a strategy and communications consultancy based in Lagos. I am Chido Nwakama. I will serve as the moderator. I am president of the International Association of Business Communicators, Nigeria. I have 3 decades industry experience. I've worked in journalism, academia, and medicine. I run Bluefire Limited, a strategic communication firm that provides businesses with e-tools necessary for managing business communications across stakeholder divisions and corporate segments. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. Let me tell you just a little about the IABC West Africa Interest Group before we move on to the business of the day. The International Association of Business Communicators West Africa Interest Group is a member of the Africa region of the Global Association. We provide a platform for West African professional business communicators who are keen to excel in their careers and to improve on their knowledge and practice of the communication profession. We also provide networking opportunities and avail experts the opportunity to mentor and profess their expertise to a varied audience within the profession. I will say to you, when you join, you are connected with thousands of business professionals around the world. Global body as well as the Africa region hosts separate annual conferences covering communication trends, recent topics, and new technologies that impact the profession of the professional. We are currently working on offering a range of certifications and programs, as well as workshops in conjunction with the global body and reputable institutions. You can join us on our social media handles. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, and we're also on Facebook. So I welcome you all to this, what promises to be very interesting, very interactive session where we will be discussing matters about the linkage between communication and various other areas of business management. So we will start immediately. We will just go into it, and I will have just go into it by taking on the first question. What we will do, we will have each of our panelists do a few minutes of introduction and a statement of where they want to take us to. Let's start with Nana Boake Yadom. Nana?
Thank you. So, and thank you for the opportunity to join this this forum. I'm also here, even though I'm on the panel, I'm also here to learn a lot. But basically, I would be sharing my experiences working, for Guinness Ghana as a multinational, and also having to, try and do bespoke local communications, even though you have a bigger organization that sometimes everything has to be aligned with them. How do you share the experiences of localizing your communication and getting the effect you need for performance? So that's the angle I'll be coming in, trying to share the practicality of doing comms, in an area like this.
Thank you, Nana. Welcome. We look forward to sharing with you the vast experience you have and all that. Dr. Anya?
Yes.
Hello?
Okay,
Yes,
hello,
Dr.
yes.
Let's hear from you. Please unmute. Could you unmute, ma'am? Aha, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, I was saying thank you. It's a pleasure to be on this forum. It's not usually where I will find myself, but it's interesting to be here. And I'm happy to share with you some of my experiences from running a business and the role of communication in being an entrepreneur, particularly in healthcare in this region.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You are welcome. Professor Robert Hinson.
Yes, please. So good afternoon, and I'm happy to be here as well. Like Nana Machi said, I'm here to speak and I'm also here to learn. What I'll try to do is to speak to strategic communication as it relates to internal firm development and external firm development as well. So if you notice, the issues revolve around culture, productivity, and profitability. So I'll try and look at these from internal and external perspectives. I mean, all said, when you do strategic communication well, you can set your company alight and be very profitable. When you are weak at it, you die slowly. So either way, strategic communication is like the oxygen for business growth for all forward-looking organizations on the continent of Africa. Thank you, Chido.
Thank you so much. Okay, preliminary is over. I think we are set. I will start with Dr. Onya. In 10 years, ma'am, Melon Medical has grown to become a trusted brand in healthcare, essentially living up to its brand promise. What is your brand promise? And how have you communicated this within your organization and externally? In essence, how do you engage with your team to deliver on this promise? Hello, Dr. Onya. Wow.
Sitting and sharing my screen, so I will talk without the screen. So okay. We have, thank you very much. I think it's a compliment what you just said about the hospital, Pelham Memorial Hospital. So we have certain business principles that guide and drive the business. And those principles are what have shaped the brand. So for example, a value proposition, let me start with the vision. The vision was to redefine healthcare in Nigeria. So it was not about comparing ourselves with what exists or seeing what other people do, but we thought we needed to redefine it. We thought what was existing was not acceptable and we wanted to redefine it. So we set the pace for our own self. And we said our mission was to do it by providing safe, timely, effective, what we do, centers around patient safety. We tend to work on, a turnaround time for most things we do tends to be shorter than most because we're very conscious about being timely. We are very evidence-based, so we don't do anything just because we think that's what should be done. There has to be evidence that drives it. And so, in summary, I would say our business principles have driven the brand. Value proposition, we say, is to provide, it's what we call high reliability, which is getting it right the first time and every time. And I think that's probably the most important statement, getting it right the first time, every time. And I think by just trying to abide by those business principles and letting them drive the culture of the business.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Hello.
Hello.
Oh. I can't hear her anymore.
You can't hear me now. Stop talking.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I'm listening to you now. Okay.
All right. Nana, I want to come to you. How do you ensure that the targets of the communication team are aligned with business targets?
So
you had a communication team.
Right. So for a start, I would like to start by saying that you definitely cannot have a communication strategy or plan outside your organization's short, medium to long-term goals. Oftentimes, comms leads, fall into this trap of a rhythm, that are comfortable with, which also aligns with what PR and communication used to be, that they just have to do a few media publications, and which means that their job is done. As Prof said earlier, communication now is not just about those things. It's strategic. It's connected to business performance. It's connected to organizational culture. And so the work that we do to ensure that our targets are aligned to business targets is really, really important. The other thing we do sometimes is even just less than 5% actually of what we do the entire year as a communications organization. But there are a few things I believe we should consider when we're trying to ensure your targets are aligned to business priorities, which would be that I think you must fully understand and be clear about the business performance goals. And if in the case that you are a multinational, you must be able to understand the bigger picture of what your multinational is trying to achieve, and then the local perspective. So if you miss these two, you may be in trouble as a communications person trying to make an impact in your business for a particular financial year. So that aside, I think the other thing you have to consider is that you must understand the most important aspect of your organization that connect directly to business profitability, and making sure that your common strategy aligns and covers these critical people or departments in your organization, which means that before you even start putting together this your comms target and strategy, you must have been able to engage these key people in the organization before you even start anything else. The nature of our role as comms people also means that we have to be engaging with the various departments and understanding the various functions and understand what we are supposed to deliver before we can create these communication strategies and plans to align. There's one thing that I find very, very critical and important as a comms person is that the leadership of the organization must fully be aligned and understand the comms strategy for the year. So you must find ways of ensuring that you have a platform where the leadership, you can educate them or tell them about the communication strategy for the organization for the year, so that all of them are aligned and know what role they are playing and participating throughout the year. Because as a comms person, you are not just going to be doing everything yourself. You will need the support of the leadership in the organization to be part. So I'll leave it here with regards to trying to align your comms targets with business priorities. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I don't know if you lost.
Thank you, Nana. I think Chido is having some challenges there. He should be back on air shortly. But while we wait for him, okay, I think Chido is back. Thank you.
Chido is muted. Chido is muted.
Thank you. Hello?
Chido, we are here.
Okay, thanks. So, thank you, Nana. I hear you clearly. Let me go to Prof. How can organizational leaders align communication with the overall corporate strategy of the organization? Most importantly, can strategic communication sustain organizational culture?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. And as is characteristic of teachers, I'll do a few definitional issues first before I get to some practical examples of what works and what doesn't work. So strategic comms is the purposeful use of communication by any sort of institution in order to fulfill its mission. So it's purposeful use, and then it's for fulfilling missions. Now it's very instructive that the definition has the word purposeful in it, because communications without purpose cannot conceivably be strategic. Now I know why I'm saying that, because sometimes communication professionals are caught in the trap of going to do interviews at a radio station, running a public relations campaign, issuing an advertising brief. Then when the managing director gets angry and calls and says, hey, what have you done with all the money I gave you? Then you say, oh, we've been communicating. Then questions like, how did it contribute to sales becomes a problem. How did it contribute to our brand visibility becomes a problem. Now, communication must be purposeful in order for it to be strategic. And the reason why this is so profound is that strategic communication helps with internal cultural alignment, for building a cohesive culture, helps in enhancing sales performance, helps in customer acquisition, helps in customer retention, helps in employee acquisition, helps in employee retention. For my money, any organization that doesn't do well with strategic communications cannot do well with building a healthy organizational climate, and cannot do well with building a proper engagement strategy with the market. So that said, if you want to align communications with the overall corporate strategy, there are some steps you must take. However, the question, when I read it, was a problem, because at the heart of the corporate strategy itself should be a certain communication pathway. So I want to strongly appeal to everybody listening to us today that the practice where you do a financial plan, a marketing strategy, an HR strategy, and then communication is a bolt-on or an add-on, 2020 should be the last year where we do such things in Africa. I think when we are planning for 2021, strategic comms should be at the center and at the heart of all our planning for 2021. It will be very, very interesting, especially in these COVIDian times with people getting sick and consumer behavior challenges. Communication will be crucial for organizational success all across Africa in 2021. But if you want to do this alignment, Chido, you have to do some sort of analysis first. Reflect on where you are as an organization, reflect on where you want to go, and then analyze how strategic communication can add value. So that's step number one, analyze. Then number two, you need to derive communication targets once you are sure about how you are going to deploy strategic communication. Now, let me sound a note of caution to our listeners today and say that I worked for 5 years in Ghana's best ad agency from 1990 to 2003 and worked on several global brands. I did Microsoft, Symantec, Acer, APC, all sorts of brands. One question we kept on getting asked was, how did the communication bring me value? Sometimes communication professionals can't answer because ab initio, they were not looking to sell anything. They were probably doing brand introduction or brand growth, or it wasn't a sales communication deployment. But because that wasn't settled ab initio, they are caught in explaining the value add. So please, number one is analyze how comms can add value. Number two is derive communication targets. Then number three, define KPIs and measurement methods. Nowadays, science is as important as art when it comes to strategic communications. The days when you get dollar after dollar after dollar for nothing, those days are gone forever. Everybody wants to explain clearly how the communication spend created value. And then number four, do what we call verification. So always ensure the communication is aligned with your cultural or organizational goals, and then you get excellent return for your money. Now, when you ask me, can strategic comms sustain organizational culture? Very much. Excellent. Totally. I'll answer that question by giving one anecdote, Chido. Across Africa, I find people have corporate values, professionalism, trust, reliability, quickness, all sorts of big, big words. And when I see them, I laugh. You know why I laugh? 90% of those institutions haven't translated those values into actionable service behaviors that their employees live on a day-to-day basis. It is something I see in Africa that totally confuses me. So you have a big company with big corporate values doing big adverts with outdoor radio, TV, but when you come inside, the average employee does not know exactly what to do in order to typify those corporate values. Now, how can you build an organizational culture when at the base of the organization, the values cannot even be lived? So I think communications has a great role in trying to exemplify or typify these values in ways that can be understood by the internal employees so that they work in an increasingly homogeneous manner. I think this is one missing link in Africa. So if the comms teams can work better with the HR and the customer experience, customer service teams, I think comms can be a game changer for building a strongly aligned organization with homogeneous behaviors and with a certain unique culture. All said, the Mercedes culture is not the Diageo culture. The Diageo culture is not the, maybe the, I don't know, the MTN culture. So within everybody's organizational DNA, they need to use communication to build a resilient culture by telling everybody what's expected of them and ensuring that on a day-to-day basis, they are measuring a certain adherence to those values so we can all find a good way forward. Thank you, Brother Chido.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Spoken like a professor, we like it. Nana, I come back to you. I like what you said earlier about alignment with business targets. So I ask, from your experience, how can the communication role be better managed and steered by business leaders and their communication leaders? Well, share with us some kind of templates how to manage communication function better.
Right. I think I would jump off from where Prof was talking. I think he was just spot on with regards to the communications function and your relevance and purpose to your organization. Now, the question you ask about, what role the leaders have to play in this is that, sometimes the communication leads feel that because they are in charge of communication, everything has to come from them. No, that is not entirely building you the value that you want. Sometimes you need to diversify within your organization how you communicate, and it depends on sometimes who is supposed to communicate that thing you want to send to the whole or entire organization, and how, right? So you can't necessarily delink communication and engagement from leadership of your organization for both internally and external communications. However, as a comms lead, you are responsible for varying the tactics that you deploy and knowing which leader you use in a specific period or situation to be able to deliver a particular result that you need. And I find this to be very, very, effective, especially within internal communications, where, for instance, if, you have what you call town halls, town halls. So a lot of these big organizations have town halls. Town halls are a platform where you find the various functions of the organization all coming together, right? Now, when you have a bigger vision, a bigger, performance targets for the year, sometimes it's really, really difficult to disseminate those targets to the various, functions. I believe town halls, for instance, is one of a very, very powerful tool that you can use to disseminate, performance targets, what each department has to do. Everybody must leave that platform knowing exactly what he or she is supposed to contribute to reach that goal. You are still performing a communications function, but in this time, you are using it differently differently using the leaders of the organization. It may not necessarily even be the top leaders or top executives. Sometimes you can rely on, the second tier of leaders or influencers in the organization, where you bring them to that platform and channel the business targets and goals to certain areas. So for instance, if you have the supply function, or if you have the marketing function, or you have the sales function, when for instance you have the sales executive director coming to speak, it's not necessarily speaking to only the sales, because they already know. But the person who is on the production floor understands that when I produce the product that I'm producing currently on the lines or in the factory, I know exactly what the sales people are going to do with it. They are launching this, product here. They are going to do this market, activation. Everybody seems to where we are going. So when they're producing, they know that there is a purpose to why they're producing, right? So, but the communication function is the channel for which all these things will be achieved, where you can, like I said, use these leaders in the various functions to bring everybody together in a particular platform to deliver that message of where we are going in terms of business performance. So it is really, really critical to have managers or leaders in a business be part of the communication channel. But you, the communication lead, you have a responsibility of bringing this all together and making sure that the information reaches everybody in the organization.
Okay, thank you.
Chido, please, can I jump in? Chido,
yes,
can I jump
please.
in? Yeah.
Yes.
So because he is on the client side, I want to give a bit of agency perspective, because sometimes we got bashed a lot when it came to this thing about business growth and profitability. Chido, please, I want to respectfully submit to your panel, your audience today, that I think when it comes to organizational comms relating to business growth, sales, or marketing, I think there are 4 reasons why we do this, especially when we engage with external customers or what we call channel intermediaries. We use what we call the DRIP factors, which is DRIP. D stands for differentiate, R is remind or reassure, I is inform, P is persuade to buy. Those are the DRIP factors. Differentiate, remind or reassure, inform or persuade to buy. Those are the DRIP factors. So anytime we deploy organizational comms, there should be clarity ab initio. Is this a campaign to differentiate Dr. Onye's hospital? Is it just to pass information that we are a COVID-19 certified hospital? Is it to remind or reassure people that we are a world-class hospital? What you would get in India or South Africa or the US, you can get from us here. Or is it a campaign that is expressly meant to persuade people to come to the hospital? So I've seen frameworks like the communication value framework, and if you look in the charts, people have sort of alluded to it. But if you have to simplify it for the non-marketing, non-communication person, they should just remember the DRIP factors. Is it for differentiation? Is it for reminding or reassuring? Is it for information purposes? Or are we persuading someone to buy? If we can reduce it to those DRIP factors, we know exactly what we are doing, so we don't get uncomfortable questions when we are done. Thank you, Chido.
Thank you so much. Okay, I still go back to Nana. And from what you just talked about, you talked about the linkages between the various units, all the departments. The communication person has to interface with all of them and all that. So I ask, who is responsible for the organizational culture of a business? How are they responsible and why? Who sets the tone?
Right. So I think usually for these things you have leadership settling on the organizational, what is supposed to be the organizational culture. Let me just also say that these things are not, an event, right? So it's a process, organizational culture. However, the behaviors of leaders within an organization can make the process to reaching this goal of organizational culture within an organization. However, I also feel that communication leads are very critical critical in holding everybody's hand to bringing this to life. There are various things that make up this organizational culture, you know. So for instance, if you come to Ghana, for instance, we talk a lot about our values, right? And there are many organizations that also have things that they really, really hold on to. But if you do not take care, these things will just be hangings on the walls of your company. How do you bring this to life? And I feel that communication leads or communication managers have a critical role to play here. How do you celebrate the values that people show? So if you're saying that one of your values is that you cherish people, right? Or you want to be accountable, right? How do you celebrate that? People are showing accountability in various ways, in various functions. You, the communications lead or communications manager, must have your eyes open and making sure that you are highlighting all these values in the various organizations, so in the various departments and units to the whole organization. And that is how gradually people begin to live it, right? So I feel that, you know, the celebration of values and highlighting the values that people exhibit in an organization by the comms people is key to the process of reaching organizational culture. So when, for instance, if you come to Ghana, and we talk about agility a lot, because of the nature of our business, which is an FMCG, because things move very fast. So your ability as an individual within an organization or a unit or a department to take quick decisions, strategically make a decision that impacts quickly on the business that you're doing is hugely celebrated. So for every department that shows this signal, for the company, any platform that the whole business needs, you need to bring these things out. And that is how gradually you build the blocks to having a set of organizational culture showing itself in the company that you're working in. So your question as to who is responsible, I would say that leadership is important, but communication leads are critical to making sure that everybody is following what you're supposed to do to reach that goal.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll go back to Dr. Onya before I come to Professor Hinson to round off this section on strategic comms. Quite recently, Dr. Onya, Palon was a victim of misinformation, fake news. Many people think communications is only relevant in some marketing or production settings. But could you share your experience of how this incident affected your organization and what strategic communication measures did you take on to tackle it? What did you do?
Okay.
What happened?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Before I answer your question, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, my co-speakers were very humble at the beginning to say they were here to learn. I think more than anybody else. I was immersed in the culture of the business. And I think a lot of things I do intuitively without knowing why I'm doing them were things I learned that I learned in Nigerian breweries that makes Nigerian breweries one of the most visible companies and most successful companies in Nigeria. And I worked under a very great leader. So I liked what Professor Hinson said about how do you typify the values so that people can work in a homogeneous way that reflects the organizational culture. I think to a great extent we succeeded in doing that in this business, which probably goes back to the question you asked me. How were we able to, in 10 short years, be able to gain the kind of reputation we already have in the market? And I think it's because our culture very strong, not a lot externally, because as a conservative profession, we're not allowed to advertise in Nigeria. So we're very careful about what we put out there and rely a lot on word of mouth recommendations. But internally, we're very strong. We have regular town hall meetings where we sit down and give ourselves feedback and we do things together. And I think that's one thing that I've learned now. So we've practiced it intuitively, but now I understand why we do. I'm also very happy to hear about the drip. I'm going to, after this seminar, this webinar, I'm going to certainly pay more attention to our business communication, certainly. But then answering your question, so what happened was, branches. We have 2 branches in Lagos, one in Ikeja and one in Victoria Island. So we decided to reduce the number of staff who come to work. We decided to reduce the service, just to scale down. And so in doing that, we said we will mothball the Ikeja hospital, and we put out a notice to mostly the HMO, the health insurance company, but to all our customers, saying that from the 1st of April, we were going to shut the Ikeja hospital down. Somehow, in trying to communicate that to their own enrollees, they mixed the message of saying Pelon has voluntarily shut down one branch, with the fact that certain hospitals the first thing we did was, like I said, like I always say, at the Heineken University, one of the things I learned that has impacted me a lot is that what... No. Now, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, that one of the things that has impacted me a lot was the fact that, okay, so you disabled my video, but that's fine. So one of the things that impacted me the most is that what you don't pay attention to will die, and what you give attention to will grow. So I didn't want to rush back to the public to say it's not true. So I just simply went back to the health insurance company that was responsible for this misinformation, and then they wrote back to the particular client. The serendipitous thing that came out of this was that a patient of mine, the first patient I managed with COVID in the hospital, the child said to me, "Doctor, why are you," the son said to me, "Why are you shutting your Ikeja branch? Why don't you convert it to a COVID center?" And I thought that's not a bad idea. And so rather than shut the hospital, well, we had shut it down, we now repurposed it and sought accreditation to provide private care for COVID-infected patients. And we got the accreditation after 2 months of trying to get it. And now we're currently providing, we're one of the 2, but now 3 hospitals providing care to COVID patients in Lagos.
Okay, thank you. Interesting experience. The communication flow and how along the channel there could be challenges and misinterpretation of messages. It's interesting how that played out. We thank God for you that it turned out at the end to be a positive. So let me come to Professor Hinson. What are some of the misconceptions that management has about the communication role, and what do you think is responsible for this? Robert.
Thank you very much, Chido. So I'll speak to 3 or 4 broad reasons, and then I'll delve into 1 or 2. The first reason I've seen across Africa is that there's a misconception communication professionals don't do a serious job. I mean, finance is respected, HR is respected, but sometimes you get the sense that just anybody can do communication. Once you can speak, you can talk, come on, let's go. And I wonder for the life of me how you can think that communication is just anybody's job. So I think that's the first misconception. Number two, communication doesn't get the requisite amount of budget it needs to play its true strategic role. What happens is that when everything else has been accounted for, then you sort of add on a little for you to do a few road shows, do a few town halls, and mix it with a few radio adverts. So that's the second problem. So the first one is communication is nothing special, anybody can do it. The second thing is that they don't allocate enough resources to allow it to play its proper strategic role. The third thing is that communication professionals are sometimes not allowed into the strategy room. So you find that very few communication directors might sit in senior management or on executive committees. You report through A, who reports through B, who reports through C. If you're not careful, you have to report to K before you see somebody at the top speaking to the managing director. I don't know why the feeling is that everything else matters, but communication. Sometimes they put communication under general services. Can you imagine? I mean, what is general services? If you are procuring things and communication is there. Sometimes they put communication under administration. The head of HR also oversees the communication function. I'm not saying it's good or bad. All I'm saying is that it doesn't allow the full benefit of that function to be felt in moving the organization forward. So one question I was asked privately on this call is the fact that CEOs don't allow communication professionals to work. 3.5 weeks ago, I had a painful discussion with one of my students who came to study for an EMBA in marketing. Totally brilliant guy. And he left a bank, which everybody on this call knows, so I'm not going to mention the name of the bank. And why did he leave? All the managing director was telling that person is, go and do this, go and do that, go and do this, go and do that. And that's all it was. So he couldn't find communication strategy, he couldn't institute communication protocols, he couldn't put in communication benchmarks. I mean, he couldn't do anything strategic. He was just going to do this one, go and do this radio advert. So after a while, he thanked the MD very much for their time, packed his bags, and has moved on to a major multinational institution where the full strength of his communication expertise is now brought to bear on the work he does over there. So I think communication professionals, we need to reassert ourselves. What I'm thinking is that we need to start something I call a CPR, which is a communication professionals revolution in Africa, where we begin to re-articulate what exactly our value proposition is. Because the way I see this fight, if we don't take the fight to the C-suite, we'll never be the recipients of residual matters, and we can never really take our proper role. So like Mary Ikoku is publishing right now, she said we should do a well-articulated communication protocol, have comprehensive policies, and so on and so forth. I think it's all good. We should do all those things. And then profoundly, Chido, we need to begin to re-articulate the unique selling proposition of the communication function in institutions across Africa. We can't assume the organizations know. Clearly, they don't appreciate it. So public sector, private sector, third sector, not-for-profits, we need to go and wage a new revolution to explain why we matter. And the reason why I feel this seminar is so timely is that we are in August. Most good organizations are planning now for 2021. They are doing reviews. They are getting ready September, October. By November, they are closing budgets and everything is ready to go. So let's go back and re-articulate the value propositions at 3 levels. Organizational brand development, internal culture enhancement, and then external engagement, business growth, marketing, sales, customer engagement. So let's go and tell them how being around helps to build organizational brands. Let's also tell them how our being around helps to build stronger organizational cultures and ultimately why our being around leads to business growth. If we can weigh the revolution on those three levels, we could be finding a good way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. But don't go away. Would you then attribute low productivity or poor performance to misunderstood corporate goals, or the disconnection between strategic communication and the cascading of overall corporate goals? Is it a question of communication failure responsible for relationship failure?
Okay, so if you want a very candid answer, I think a lot of the problems, internal or external to organizations in Africa, has something to do with communication failure. From employee retention to talent management to customer experience management to internal customer management, I think at various levels, we haven't truly fleshed out the power of strategic communication in building organizations in Africa. So yes, I'll agree with you that at several levels, a lot of the organizational failures we experience is due to the fact that we don't quite use communication for its full efficacy. That's part of the problem. Look, I can tell you without being contradicted that 90% of public universities in Africa, for instance, don't have strategic communication, like at all. I mean, at all. I can also tell you that for most SMEs in Africa, they also don't have strategic communication plans. Once you have a core card and a letterhead, you are good to go. So communication is relegated to core cards and letterheads. How that is, Chido, I don't know. So I agree with you that a lot of the organizational failures we experience, internal and external to organizations in Africa, has to do with poor communication routines and a poor appreciation of strategic communication for organizational success. I do agree with you, sir.
Thank you. Let me come back to Dr. Onya. Dr. Onya, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Brand building in related sectors such as medicine is different from other areas. From your experience, what are the commonalities and what should persons in the service-related sectors take on or utilize as brand building tools?
Like I said, first, we made sure that all our business principles are aligned. That's very important to us. And the second thing is internal communication is very strong. So we communicate with each other. We use WhatsApp chat groups. We use emails internally. We have, like I said, regular meetings, both for clinical governance and just business governance generally. So, and then we've made everybody, every employee of Pelon has eventually become a brand ambassador. And they stand, so in our service delivery, we make sure we try and communicate our values. We have also used more recently social media. So we have all kinds of social media platforms.
I've lost you. Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. So we're not allowed to say, for example, Dr. Onya is the best pediatrician in Lagos, but we are allowed to say we offer pediatric services in Pelon. So we have carefully looked at what we are allowed to do, and we've taken advantage of social media. Like I said, we built all the social media platform, and we advertise in quotes our services without advertising the service providers. And I think that way we've been able to get. But I think the most important thing is that our people reflect our brand and our values. And I think that's the strongest communication tool we have, our people.
Thank you. Thank you. I can see there are a lot of learnings from what you've shared. You mentioned at least 5 key areas: the alignment of business principles with your practice, strong internal communication. You make every employee a brand ambassador representing Pelon. You are using social media now, but more importantly, the emphasis in communicating is on the institution not on the persons, since doctors are not allowed to sell themselves. Thank you, thank you. Interesting. We'll share. Robert Hinson, let me come back to you.
Yes, please.
The saying is that culture is strategy for launch. And we think that it points to the importance of building the right culture to support corporate goals and increase productivity. What role does communication play in this process of building the culture and aligning it with the strategy?
So I want to thank you very much for your question again. I've tried to answer aspects of this question in my earlier presentations, but just because it's culture and just because Tony Uwafio just posted something in the chat, I'm going to combine what he posted with the question you've asked. And then what he said in the chat was, the problem with strategic comms is global. How do we measure? And I'm going to combine that with culture so that we can find a good way forward. Chido, so here's my practical advice. This is not from any communication textbook. I think what we need to do is that we need to better intertwine communication goals with the other functional business areas. So I'm called Professor Hinson, head of the biggest and the oldest marketing department in Ghana, in Ghana's oldest university, University of Ghana Business School. What you need to do is that you take the various products as product portfolio. So MSc International Business is portfolio 1, MSc MA Marketing Management portfolio 2, and then you link the communication goals with the success of those products. So that's one way you can deploy communication. When you come internal, how does communication link with customer retention? You need to intertwine the goals. How does it link to talent management? Intertwine the goals. How does it lead to financial solvency or sustainability? Intertwine the goals. Look, I'm doing a paper right now with a friend of mine in the UK called Emmanuel Mugaji. He's Nigerian. And we are looking at CSR communication in Nigerian banks. We are trying to see which of them are engaged in women empowerment. Now, that's a very interesting study because we haven't seen that study anywhere done before. But we are analyzing CSR reports of Nigerian banks to see which of them are pushing for financial inclusion, women empowerment, and have a conspicuous focus on developing female businesses. And the results are very, very interesting. So I think what we need to do is, can we put communication into everything in the organization? Whether it's logistics, supply chain, financial management, HR management, even managing channel intermediaries, the trade. What do we do there? If we can begin to do that, then communication becomes the very fabric on which we weave all organizational routines. Chido, I think it's possible. You need a CEO and a senior management who buy into this. Once that is done, communication will not sit on its own again. But anybody who's goes with the communication team, and their success becomes the success of the communication team. I think this is how we can get around some of these cultural obstacles in making strategic comms very important for organizational success. Thank you, Chido.
Thank you. Nana, I'm coming to you. We need to find out. We have a situation now where there is information overload. At the same time, there is attention scarcity. People have a shorter attention span, yet there's so much information, and digital is at the heart of it. Digital media communication is a principal generator of value for businesses seeking increased brand awareness and customer loyalty. How does this pose a risk or benefit to businesses that have not taken the communications function seriously? How does this abundance yet scarcity?
Right, and I think pre-COVID, for a lot of the organizations that had heard but attended years are now suffering the consequences of, previous commentators and people in the industry advocating for every business to start looking digital, you know, and they didn't do it. Now, those organizations are heavily suffering because when things switched and everybody had to go into a digital mode, those who had not gone in already were now struggling to figure out how it works. But those who are already in there just had to fine tune and improve upon what they do. Indeed, there's abundance, you know, like we have established here, that communications leads are really, really important in this whole mix. Information out there, you need somebody with the requisite training to be able to distill, you know, this information and make sure that we are doing targeting. So the way hello, I think I dropped off, but I'm back now.
Yes, okay, you are back now.
Hello. Hello. Right. So I was making a point. I was making a point that even within, you know, in the targeting, there are various aspects of the targeting as well, depending on who you are targeting. It could be a very different segmentation of people that you are targeting. So that is really, really key. That in doing digital, you must be super clear on your strategy, your target audiences, how you want to communicate with the various target audiences, which language you have to use to reach those target audiences, and you need segmentation. If you're not able to do that, you lose out, because if you go and say, oh, everybody is on social, all my competitors are on social, and you start putting things out there, you'll be putting things out there, but you may not be reaching anybody, you may not be making any change. So it is important that you are strategic with your communication on digital, depending on, you know, which industry you are in. You must know what kind of language you even use, depending on the industry you are in. So if you do that, we can go in there because everybody's there, but we have to be tact and strategic. You can't just go on social or digital and be putting things out there. Again, you must also even understand, you know, what are the right channels to use and what are the right platforms to reach the segment of people you want to reach. So this is all really, really key for any organization. And depending on the industry you're in, it informs how you communicate digitally as well. And that's how you'll be able to reach your target audience, despite the fact that there are a lot of people on digital.
Thank you so much. We will take one question for each of you, and that will be it. We've done 1 hour, and
can I get 1 minute on digital? Just 1 minute, because of social media and machine learning. Please. Okay, so I just want to say that sometimes we get too caught up in the dazzling lights of technology and social media and automation and robotics and machine learning. Not every communication problem is solved on Instagram or on Facebook. So I think we always need to use science and use data to always determine the most appropriate platforms for getting the highest efficacy for our communication spend. So that temptation to love social, everything social, please, not everything is solved on social media. So I thought I should say that for the record. Thank you, Chido.
Thank you very much. Dr. Onya, I'm coming back to you. Hello, Dr. Onya. Hello. Is Dr. Onya there? Wow. Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, sure. Yes, I can hear you now. Yes,
sorry,
I can hear you now.
All right then, okay.
Yeah, my question is this. Some businesses in Africa struggle with aligning service delivery with their brand promise. You had mentioned the brand promise of get it right and every time. What actions do you take as a business leader to ensure that your organization does what it says it will do, that you get it right first time and every time? What are the challenges that you faced in the course of trying to do this?
I think the first action is that I lead by example. I think that's the first thing. So I lead from the front. And I supervise very closely, almost to the point of micromanaging, which is not very good for either my mental health or the mental health of the people I.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
We lost you a little while.
I lead from the front by example. Then I mentor, I coach, I micromanage, which isn't very good, but I do, until I think the culture has been imprinted in the people. Then I let them continue as brand ambassadors. But yes, it's been very challenging because managing people, I think, has been my biggest challenge. The infrastructure doesn't support a lot. For example, the challenges we're having with bandwidth now where you cannot hear me. So that's a bit of a challenge. So it's almost like swimming uphill or against the tide. Well, going uphill or swimming against the tide. But with a lot of effort and trying to carry everybody along, giving everybody a the end will succeed.
Okay. Thank you, Ma. Nana, let me give you speak to the last shot. Value creation is the foremost goal of each business. As a corporate comms expert, what would you say is the communication value cycle, and how can businesses weave this into their overall growth strategy?
So I wanted to make a point on this about, creating value in the organization. Bob mentioned something earlier about the perceptions, and the fact that sometimes when the work we are even doing within, we're not letting people even know. So we're not even speaking about our own success. Now, when you're doing communication in organizations, don't forget that communication is not just about putting information out. There are other things, strategic things that you do that still brings value to the organization. So for instance, you are, as a corporate relations team, you are dealing with regulation and policy for government, right? There is a particular policy or regulation that government wants to put in place. But you, as a communication person for the organization, depending on which industry you are in, it could be oil and gas, it could be banking and whatever. Once you are dealing with government and if your organization feels that that policy will not inure to the benefits of your company or the industry, and you team up and you engage government, eventually government does not implement this policy because they considered, your position or your organizational position on this matter. That is value that you have created, because the impact of that policy could have hit your business where you could lose millions of dollars, right? So that amount of money that you could have lost as a business, and you manage to convince government not to implement or even reduce the impact of policy on your business, that is real value that you can show to the company. That, you know what, based on our engagement with government and stakeholders, this is the result of what we engage government, and this is what you're seeing. In the end, instead of paying perhaps $30 million for a particular policy, government policy, or losing $30 million because of a particular government policy. Now you're not losing it. That's a lot of money you have saved the business. And that is value that you can share with the organization. This is what I bring to the table, and I can do more. And I think we often, as communication people, often fail to tell these stories and show this as value for the organization, for which reason constantly the organization doesn't feel that we are doing something critical to the bottom line of the companies we work with, for which reason they don't want to give us the budget we want, or they relegate communication to the background. They are not part of the decision-making body and process. So I think that we need to start thinking about it this way and seeing the value that you are bringing to the organization and tell it and let people see why we're important to those organizations.
Thank you so much. You have brought out the value of communication beyond direct sales. There's a social license. That's what you're saying. We ensure that the business gets a social license even to operate, because without that social license, there's a problem. In the oil and gas sector in Nigeria and in the extractive industries generally, community relations is key to get the social license for you to even be able to operate your mining license or your oil license. Otherwise, you can't operate. And it's communication that manages that function. Thanks. We will take the last one with Professor Hinson. And I'd like to ask, what would you say are the three most important contributors to profitability? And how do you see the strategic communications role contributing to this, the three most important contributors to business profitability and sustainability?
Okay, so since you all have some Pan-Atlantic University connections, I will refer you to a paper I did with Ogechi Adiola on how to survive the 5 C's of sales in the COVID-19 era. So when the seminar is done, you can all go and read it because it will capture the essence of what I'm going to say now. This question would have been answered differently a year ago, but in the light of COVID-19, I'm going to answer it in a particular way. So organizations that are going to be profitable post-COVID-19 will need strong internal teams. Number one, strong internal team. Because when COVID-19 arrives, it can attack your employees like it attacks your customers. So companies that are going to be resilient going forward are going to have strong internal teams. Resilient teams who are still switched on, are working remotely, have digital tools, feel like the company still cares for them. And if you don't see how strategic communication is important in maintaining good internal relations, employee relations, then, well, you really don't understand strategic comms. So the first avenue for profitability in a COVID-19 era is strong internal teams. Number two is a strong appreciation of changing customer needs. So consumer behavior is different now. So you need to keep your finger on the pulse of all your customers and stakeholder audiences. So a strong internal teams, and then a strong tab or a strong sense of how your customer needs are changing. They are more afraid. They can't come to you in brick and mortar formats. Their route to markets have changed. Their customer journeys have changed. So number one is strong internal team. Strategic comms will help. Following your customer in their purchasing life cycle and their customer lifetime journeys, it will also help. And then number three, a certain dynamic engagement with the market. What does that mean? Your brand propositions might have to change. Your sustainability and CSR stories, you just spoke about community relations and social license. So you need strong dynamism in the way you engage your market, just so that your organizational relevance is sustained in this pandemic era and going forward. So number one, building strong internal teams. So comms must work with HR, human capital, make it work. Number two, you need a certain sense of customer feelings and how they are changing. So you're working with marketing, sales, customer experience, your trade people, even your resellers and channel intermediaries are also customers. Then number three, a certain dynamism with engaging the external market. That one is fully the role of senior management to ensure that as the environment changes, strategic communications is a main tool for keeping pace with how the external environment is changing so that you can stay ahead of the market. Internal teams, strong customer engagement, dynamic market engagement. Thank you, Chido.
Thank you, Prof. And this brings us to the end of this webinar. I want to thank all of you, our panelists, for these brilliant interventions. But before we leave, let me call on Shola Abulu, our host, to speak to us and round up. Shola? Hello? Shola?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, so just to say a big thank you to everyone, everyone who has joined as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. Professor Hinson, Dr. Onya, and Nana as well. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a great session. I do apologize for the audio. I know we've had some audio challenges at some point, and I hope that most of us have heard a little bit of what was said. I think some really fascinating stuff here. Dr. Onya's experience in terms of communication, how she's able to align service delivery with her brand, and even all the things that she shares, you know, in terms of how she has really helped to build that culture of communication. And I see a direct connection with the things that, you know, each of the panelists have said, because when I think of Professor Hinson, who said that communication has to be weaved into the fabric of everything that we do, and that we need really strong internal teams to be able to deliver. I see that that's the sort of thing that even someone like Nana also spoke about when he was speaking, in terms of how we build that cohesiveness internally and ensure that we're able to position ourselves as communication professionals that the organization can begin to lean on. And I think there's so much to unpack from everything that we have, a lot of things that have been said here. We will try and curate sound bites to each and every one of you as we go along. We would have ordinarily been sharing the recording, but the audio is poor, so we'll probably listen to it and then make a judgment call as to whether or not we'll do so or not. But thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you so much to our panelists joining in from Ghana. Nana and Prof, you've been awesome. Doctor, thank you so much for taking time out from your time. I do hope this has been useful to everyone. We are the West Africa Interest Group of the IABC Africa. If you want to join us, please hit us up. I think we've shared in some of the communication you'd see, we've shared some of our contact emails where you can reach us and let us know. Just join us. We would like to have you on board. So thank you for joining us and all the best. Thank you so much. Back to Chido.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you all. Wherever you are in Africa, you've been listening to us, you participated, we are grateful. We couldn't have done this feast without you. As they say in my culture, if you prepare a feast and the community doesn't come to eat it, you will almost die of eating too much. So we are grateful that you all participated. Send in questions and link us up again. We will come your way soon and we will let you know as soon as we are ready. Have a nice day, the rest of the day. God be with you all. Cheers.
And you too, sir. Madam Shola, you'll be sending a Euro check, right? Euro.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much. Nana, thank you for joining. Thank you, Dr. Onya. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.